All right, folks, welcome to yet another session of Informatica Cloud Tech Tuesdays, and the final in our three-part series of December is for developers. So today we're very, very happy to have with us Thomas Bennett, an integration developer from our partner Encino. So we're very happy that he's going to be sharing his use case of embedded integration with us. So for those of you that joined us for some of the earlier sessions of December is for developers, it really was a three-part series that took you through the journey of what a typical ISV goes through when they're trying to gain more customers and how they solve their problem by embedding integration. So the first session, we talked about how important it is to automate new customers into your app. And Thomas is really going to go over some of those details as to how he did with Encino and what kind of challenges they faced before they came upon the Informatica Cloud solution. And our second in the three-part series, we had Nick Brizu from our Cloud Platform Adoption team go over some details around how you can maximize your API's capabilities and how you can really build a native connector to your application to access business-level metadata as opposed to having your customers go through a REST API all the time and write custom code for it. And then today, the grand finale in our December is for Developers series is where we're actually going to have Thomas Bennett go through a lot of his user interface within the Encino application. So what we have on the agenda today is we're going to have a quick recap over what we learned over these the three-part series. And the Encino demo itself is going to focus on how they created an admin console for their own professional services team to onboard new customers into the Encino application. And then how Thomas created an innovative way to make Apex callouts within Salesforce for data loading and extraction. We're going to have a summary of our learnings in our usual Q&A session, and we're going to talk a little bit about Next Tech Tuesdays. So let's have a quick recap over how applications typically connect. So you have your application, which needs to connect with all sorts of backend databases, other cloud applications, so on and so forth. And even if you have all that information in one place within your own application, your other customers still have to connect through your API, be it a REST API or a SOAP API. And you have to make all these constant calls, API calls, resulting in a lot of brittle code which you have to change. So what we discussed in the last session is why it makes sense to build a native connector to your particular application. So Encino is actually an application that is built completely in the Force.com platform, so that connectivity problem doesn't actually exist, and because they're built on the Force.com platform. And they're actually an application that serves a lot of the community banks within America. They're headquartered in the East Coast in Wilmington, North Carolina, and really there are a lot of community banks in that area. So what Encino does is it helps all these community banks really eliminate a lot of their paper-based processes when it comes to qualifying people for their loans, be it small businesses or be it individuals looking for mortgages, and streamlines an entire process from the time you originate a loan to the time you actually close the loan. And they've achieved savings, time savings over 40% with a lot of their customers. So in a way, they're really powering the resurgence of the American economy because it's a lot of these small businesses and first-time home buyers that are powering the American economy, and a lot of the community banks are involved in this process. So with Encino being a major player in that space, they really are helping power America's economy back. So with us today is Thomas Bennett, who is the main lead integration developer within Encino. He has well over 13 years experience within the integration space. He has a lot of expertise specifically within the healthcare and financial services vertical. He has a lot of expertise with web services, XML, ESBs, LDAP, as well as B2B technologies. And his favorite programming languages are PHP, C#, C++, and Java. And that's his GitHub profile if you want to go ahead and look at it. So welcome, Thomas. We're very happy to have you with us on today's program. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in Nick Brizu to go over a little bit of Encino's integration architecture, and then I'm going to hand it off to Thomas. So Nick, you were very much closely involved when Encino first deployed Informatica Cloud for the embedded integration use case. Do you want to talk to our audience about a little bit about what's going on here?
Sure, and thanks, Ashwin, and good morning, everybody. So one of the things I wanted to start off with before we really get into it with Thomas is just a review of how our architecture works. So all of the information about your users and the integration tasks, the mappings as we call them, that you're going to be using are stored in the Informatica Cloud repository. Now, this is the only data that gets stored in Informatica Cloud. All the data that's being moved between your sources and your targets actually get run locally behind the firewall using the Informatica agent. So in the case of Encino, their customers install the Encino Professional Services Organization installs the agent at an Encino customer, a community bank, and then all the data flows over a secured connection both with Salesforce and whatever data sources Encino's customers are using. And Thomas, can you talk a little bit about why this ability to have the agent behind the firewall was important?
Sure, Nick. One of the main reasons, of course, it's banking data, and what we didn't want to do was in any way have the customer have to give us the data for us to be able to do some initial loading and what have you. So by using the Informatica agent, we tell the customers, look, you put the agent down on your machine, and then the data stays completely behind your firewall in your environment with all your security that you have in place that works for your bank, and we can work with your data from development all the way through production. You put the files out there, we're able to see the files if there's any issues. We're able to detect those through the cloud if there's, issues with file formats or what have you. And then we can communicate directly back with the individual that we're working with and say, hey, we're having a little bit of an issue. Let's work on the file formatting. Or even if we're loading the file, we see issues. We can say, hey, look, we found this issue. And the whole time the data stays right there. They develop it, they put the files out for us, and the only time the data ever leaves their environment is when it's going from the bank environment into the Encino application. So that way the data stays as secure as possible the entire time.
Excellent. So one of the questions that I had for you is before you started building out a solution with Informatica Cloud, what were you doing to onboard customer data, and how long was it taking to do that?
Good question. So before we went to the Informatica Cloud, the process was a in-house PHP application that was would be delivered to customers to run on their local machine. So, and at the time, we didn't really have a definitive spec. So everything was being custom for every single customer. And in the beginning, when you have when we started out, we had a small customer base, so that was manageable, but we quickly realized there's no way this is going to be scalable. If the customer had an issue, we had to do go-to meetings and set all that up, and so we got to find a better way to come up with a repeatable process, a factory process that we can do our development, we can do support, we can do enhancements without ever having to get a go-to meeting, get access to the customer's environment, or have the customer ship us the code, and we've got 10 variations of code. So in essence, it took us from being able to import a customer's extracts from, I would say, roughly, anywhere between 3 and 6 months, depending on the complication, to now, I mean, we, with our spec that we have and using the product platform, we've been able to load customers' data within less than a day from the time they give it to us. So I would say typically, a customer hands us all their data and they say, here it is. We're loading data in less than a day.
Well, that's great, Thomas. And because you and I have worked together quite a bit, pretty closely on your solution, I know that at some point you told me that prior to doing this implementation, it was taking you about 6 months to onboard 12 customers. And I think Encino is projecting that in 2014 they're going to have to onboard about 100 customers. So it sounds like you had a pretty compelling event, and the only way to do it was to use a deployable, reusable process like Informatica Cloud to be able to solve this problem.
Correct. Yes. We're going. We started the year with roughly 10, 12 customers. We're ending the year with roughly 38, and by the end of next year, our projections were going to be at 100. So there would be no way that we would ever be able to scale, given where we were at.
Okay. So why don't we take a look at the first version of what you've built on theforce.com using our API and our integration capabilities.
When we originally, got the Informatica Cloud up, we decided very quickly that the way our organizations broke down, we have a multiple project manager implementation specialist groups. So there's only 2 of us in the data integration space that handle all the onboarding of all of our customers, which was another factor in saying, hey, we got to choose a product that's going to allow a very lean team to support a very broad team such as our PMs and ISs. So one thing we decided very quickly was we didn't want to spend a lot of time creating suborgs. So we said, hey, we'll develop this out really quickly. We spoke with Nick and Ashwin, and they were able to work with us to help kickstart this. And in about a day, we were able to come up with what you see here, which allows us to put in the customer's information. And what it does is it creates the suborg. And what it also does is then returns back a user ID and password that'll show up down here that the PM then takes with the installation documentation that we have that has the link to download the agents and says, okay, now, here, take this installation document. Here's your user ID and password. And then the customers will, typically will then go ahead and take that. If they have any questions, we help them out. They download the agent, install it, configure it, and then from a data implementation standpoint, we get to go ahead from the PM, hey, the customer's ready to go, here's your data, and then we can log into their suborg and start, migrating our template code over to then use. Currently, we're in the process of building out our new 2.0 dashboard, and we're building this out for both PSO and our support organization. So, org.
Thomas is doing that. Let me just for folks who aren't familiar with some of the terminology here. When Thomas is referring to suborgs, what happens is on the Informatica Cloud service, we set up an account for Encino, and that's known as the master organization. Each of Encino's customers get created under that organization, and they do that dynamically using the REST API. So whenever you hear the term suborg, he's actually referring to one of Encino's customers.
The 2.0 release that we have coming out is, we're in the process of building this out, but it's going to be both for our professional services team as well as our support team to be able to come in, see any running jobs. Currently, I don't have any running jobs, but you can see the history of all the jobs that we have, and this is our master org that Nick just spoke about. we're in the process of building all these out to where you can see that the agents that are running, all this is being done through the REST APIs. The agents that are currently running, workflows, users, connections, and then we're also going to have to create the suborg over here as well, and then also a configuration tab where the customers, where our users can put in certain things like, the refresh time and what have you. So, and this is all being done through the REST API. And, when I started developing it, I basically just built out a little Eclipse and just started pulling in all the different REST applications that they have, and then started making calls and testing them out to make sure everything was working sufficiently, that I had everything coded properly, just to make it easier for myself for when I was pulling this back up into Salesforce. So by doing this, though, it allows our support team now will be able to go in and be able to be more proactive. So when they get alerts that there could be a potential issue, our support team can come in here, see what was going on, get a little highlight of the error message, and be a little bit more proactive instead of getting a call from the customer that, hey, my nightly loads didn't happen, and they can come in themselves, try to triage it, and then get in touch with my other teammate Rich if they can't solve it. As well as the agents, we're also going to put some. We also, speaking about the REST API, we also have another request, and we've recently fulfilled for a customer where they wanted the ability to load data and extract data on demand out of the system. And so what we did was, using the REST APIs and the Informatica agent, we developed the data synchronization service and the data replication service. And then what we did is we created some buttons into our Salesforce environment: import records, export loans. If you out here, I have my personal relationship master. I've got a couple records out here waiting for it, Albert and Aline. So what we'll do is we'll load those up. Say import records. And if I hadn't gone off the other page, we probably could have seen it running. But anyway, so all of a sudden now you see Albert and Alina. Huh?
So just to make this clear, so you created a synchronization task. You went and built that using Informatica Cloud Mapping Designer, and now when the customer needs to load their data, on their schedule, all they have to do is press a button to get that to happen, or if they want to extract the data, they don't ever have to interact with any of the integration tasks. And I imagine this is because at these community banks, they probably don't have a lot of the technical expertise, or they may not have anybody familiar with some of these concepts, right? They just know, I want this data, or I want to upload this new data.
Exactly. They just know that, exactly that. They don't understand, going in and developing the mappings. They just know that I want data loaded. I want to get data out. One of the biggest requests is one of our banks. The CEO apparently has these fire drills where he wants to see, the FICO score. So I put that in here. The FICO score of all their customers at any given time. For some report, I guess, So we built this export loans, or actually it's supposed to be export relationships. My fault. My fault. But anyway, they hit this button. And I just pop out. I know the job is started. It goes ahead and develops, and then out on the file system, use my relationship. It's my object name. But anyway, I take that extract. They load it into some reporting system they have that goes through and does whatever and shows it to the individual, and he's happy. So and they're able to do that on demand without having to call us or the support team and say, "Hey, give me this extract." We said, "You know what? We'll make it self-service for you." We said, tell us what you want to get out of it, and anytime you need to get this extract, all you got to do is click this button, and you can go to work on it. And it really, I have to say, it really, solidified that relationship there when they were able to see that they didn't have to be so reliant on us for everything, because a lot of these community banks, they're so reliant on their cores for everything. So if they need to do anything, they've always got to call, hey, give me this, give me this. And we said, you know what, you can be reliant. You just tell us what you want, we'll build it out, we'll set it up for you, and it's on demand whenever you need it. So we do have a batch cycle that does load relationships. However, there was one reason why we had the import records is they might have a thing where they want to be able to get that information in sooner, so we gave them that ability. You can put the extract out here. Here's the format. You hit the button, it loads it in for you, and you can keep on working. You don't have to wait until the batch cycle at night. So
that's pretty cool, because then that means that they don't have to reach out to your support or your professional services. And again, all about that scalability with supporting your customers, right?
Exactly. It keeps the request down low on our side, allowing our support team to be able to actually focus on and triage, customers that really are in the weeds that need help, and it allows the customer to be able to be more dynamic. They can be able to spin on a dime and get what they want when they want it, and not have to be like, I want this report. Well, it could take our support guys 4 hours to get around to answering that ticket. Well, now they can literally have that report ready, and I think these guys said in less than 20 minutes. By the time they export it, they load it, and it runs through this other application. They've got their data and they're showing it,
that's very cool. It seems that you and I meet roughly on a weekly basis to kind of go over where you're at your work, what kind of help you need, and every time I talk to you, you've got something new built, so that's pretty cool. And speaking of that, are there any future functionality that you plan on developing?
Yes. So we're in the process of building out an Android application. It's in the very infant stages, but we are actually in the process of building out an Android application so that we can start jobs if we need to be able to offer it to our customers, so that if they want to be able to do something but they're away, that they could actually go in, they could log in, and be able to start a job, and be able to see the status if they if their agent went down or what have you, or a workflow aired out. We're also in the process of using the Informatica rule point to build the proactive monitoring for it, so that we can send out alerts that says, hey, we had an issue. Or you're getting close to your data limits in Salesforce, or you're getting close to your limits here, and they can then pull it up on their mobile if they're away, able to see what's going on. Okay, let me be a little bit more reactive. They can see what an agent's down, what host it's on. They can make a phone call. Let's get this going. So we've got a lot of great stuff in the works, and it's we're using. It's not just the whole platform, right? So we're using the entire Informatica platform stack to be able to, build out this, proactive-based reporting, monitoring, and self-service to our customers. So,
very cool. So that's a good segue for my next question. So, as you know this, Thomas, but just for everybody out there, Informatica just doesn't offer, your plain data integration services. We have a number of other capabilities. And what are some of the solutions that you're planning on using that go beyond just the data integration part, Thomas?
So we're looking at, using the data quality to help with our customers. We want to be able to try to start scorecarding our customers' data, let them, be able to see, this is the state of your data, and also be able to help trend it, so that we can say, hey, this is where you started. Your data is getting better. We can feed it back to them. So I think that's one thing, is that they don't always, get to see the data at that level. We're also in the process of, like I said, the proactive monitoring. and we're also looking at using the active endpoints to do some process integration at the customer side. And
yeah, and I'm glad you brought up that you guys are looking at the data quality piece because I think sometimes when either internally or externally when customers embark on this kind of exercise where they're going to be moving data into service to get some value out of it, or perhaps internally in an organization when they're looking to do some kind of business intelligence or reporting analytics type of application, they may not realize that the data that they're moving in isn't actually of very good quality, and so the value they're going to get out of that exercise isn't going to be as good. So it's very important when you have an integration project to also have to take a look at and have a data quality strategy to make sure that the information you're going to be aggregating is actually is going to have some value.
Exactly. I mean, we've had some really good conversations with our customers, and been able to what we've started with right now, just be able to show them, and it's been a win-win. I think the customers have really opened their eyes to, okay, we need to take a look at that. One of the biggest things, of course, I'm sure most people come across is emails. And the other thing I want to bring up too is you're not just limited to what the data services piece here. We've actually had one customer where their request was a very complicated request, and so we built a Power Center job, and we were able to take that Power Center job, import it into the cloud, and execute it. And it sent it down to the agent and ran. So we have that ability there if we run into a situation where the request from the customer is for whatever reason not a typical request of load my data, do some some good transformation
right
on it. We can still go back to the Power Center environment, which we do, and build a workflow on mapping, and gave the customer exactly what they wanted, and it was and as well as we're also in the process of completing out our templates. So one of the things with the org creation I did want to touch base on is the final step with the org creation is, when this is all done, when a PM creates the org, the sub-org, this new customer, it's also going to then load all the template all the templates that we're going to use to process our data. So we currently have 6 specs. We have our relationships, contacts, loans, deposits, etc. And it's going to go ahead and take these vanilla templates and load them in there and say, okay, this is what we typically see as some of the basic transformations that we typically see across the platform for customers. And then we can go in and dial it in. If a customer's got some specific needs, substringing, what have you, we can go in and dial it in. But we're never going to be reinventing the wheel. It's going to be, like I said, a factory. Completely self-driven, so that Rich and I can be as nimble as possible, and we can keep our team as lean as possible. So I think that's another thing. Data integration teams typically tend to be rather large. Our job is to keep our team very, very lean.
Very, very cool, Thomas. Thanks a lot for that. I feel like we could talk about this for a few hours, but we're kind of hitting up against the limit of the of the webinar. So let's hand this back to Ashwin so he can wrap this up and talk about the next step.
Excellent. All right, so what you guys saw, folks, is a demo by Thomas Bennett of Encino, and he basically went over Encino's embedded integration use case, how they are basically using an admin console for their own professional services team to load customers and onboard them a lot faster than by manual PHP scripts that they used to do. So I do see that we have some questions in the chat panel, and we will get to that just after we go over a quick summary of what we learned. So the tips for success from this particular session is when you're in the midst of building an integration natively, as well as embedding integration natively into your application, make sure you engage Informatica Cloud's platform adoption team to speed up the process. So Thomas and Nick have been really joined at the hip from when the project started, and as a result, Thomas was able to get the app up and running pretty quickly. Then as far as creating templates, as you heard Thomas say before, what you want to do is you want to very, very quickly identify the common use cases so that you can build templates for them. That way you don't have to keep on recoding that same integration over and over again when you acquire new customers. And finally, always think about automation when you're utilizing your API, because that's going to minimize the amount of custom coding you're going to have to do. So with that, we have now reached the Q&A session of our presentation. So the first question here, Thomas, is what parts of the Informatica Cloud REST API did you use?
At the moment, I have used virtually all of them. So the main ones that I'm using right now is the org, agent, the user, login, and the task for the to execute the jobs. But by the time we're done, I'll end up using about 90% of all the functions.
We just have time for one last question. So the question is, and this could be for, I guess, Nick or Thomas. The fact that you can embed integration in the cloud, does that mean it is more useful for B2B as opposed to internal usage? So this particular customer has both B2B, such as web methods, as well as internal integration loads. So the question is Informatica Cloud more useful for B2B style integration as opposed to internal usage? So maybe Nick, if you could answer that, and then Thomas, if you could add some color to it.
Sure. I think actually in Encino's case, this is a pretty good example where we have both B2B and internal usage. If you think about how Thomas is enabling his professional services team, I'm willing to bet they're not data integration experts. However, using the Informatica Cloud platform solution, he's able to expose to them all this feature-rich data integration functionality without having them become experts in how to do all this stuff, right? So you can think of any scenario where you want to give either your customers or your internal users the ability to do some data movement, right? Some kind of simplified data movement at their own time, and maybe give them the ability to pick or customize it a little bit, like pick some fields because they only want a certain subset of the data. Then it doesn't have to be just B2B. It can absolutely be internal usage. And Thomas, you can confirm this. In this case with your professional services team, this is sort of a hybrid scenario. It's internally being used by professional services to enable customers to move data in and out of Encino.
No, that's correct. So we're using it, both the B2B solution for our customers as well as internally. We're also creating an internal data warehouse where we, pull data in, aggregate some data from our customers, like the number of new loans, et cetera, and pull that into a local data warehouse where we have some business intelligence that's running on it, so that we can, be able to see what's going on in our environments, how they're being used, and what have you. So definitely use it for both scenarios.
Excellent. Well, those are all the time we have for questions, so I just want to do a quick wrap-up. So for those of you that are on the call, once again, the Informatica Cloud developer community is located at informaticacloud.com/developers. Basically redirects to a community site. For those of you that do want to build embedded integration into your app, go ahead and sign up for a Informatica Cloud developer account, and there's the link there. And if you want to download the Cloud Connector SDK to build a native connector to your application, then we do have it up on GitHub. So it's github.com/InformaticaCloud. And yep, it just got up this week. So it's brand new. Go ahead and download it. And our next series of Tech Tuesdays is going to be announced in early January. And we are going to be moving to a bi-weekly format. So please keep a lookout on the Informatica Cloud communities, as well as informaticacloud.com/TechTuesdays. And once the holidays are over and we begin the new year, we'll go ahead and announce the next list of topics. So thanks once again, everyone, for joining us on this edition of Tech Tuesdays, and really for our entire three-part series of December is for Developers. We hope you have a wonderful holiday and a very happy new year, and we will see you in 2014.